Hello, everybody. Welcome in. It is Friday. That means it is
Front Office Friday.
Let's go. That's right. We are live here on the NBA Front Office YouTube channel, taking your questions and comments. We'll kick off the weekend in a fun way, breaking down some NBA basketball. Plenty to talk about. More drama in the NBA playoffs. We'll talk about trades, transactions, free agency, the draft, all kinds of stuff to dive into. Keith, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I could not be better, man. I did the last school pickup of the year. School is out for the summer, as Alice Cooper lets us know. We are done for the year, so we're good. Celtics are still alive, somehow. They're still kicking, and it's Friday.
It's
I get to hang out with my
over.
buddy and talk ball for the next hour or so. So I'm pumped.
I think mine was Celtics in 5 to take this series. It wouldn't shock me if we get the reverse sweep here. Wouldn't shock me at all at this point. I think it may be finito.
Yeah, I think the pressure's all on Miami now, right?
Yep.
It's shifted. That's just how it goes in these situations. They should probably still win, right? They're at home, they're up, but taking aside how we got here, the Celtics have been here each of the last 2 seasons. They were down 3-2 to Milwaukee, going on the road, won, and then won in Game 7 at home. Just last round, down 3-2 to Philadelphia, won in Game 6 on the road, won Game 7 at home. So they're, in some sense, they've got them right where they want them for the Celtics, even if nobody ever plans to go down 3-0 in a series.
They're now the favorite to win Game 6. The Celtics are in Miami, and some of that may be the injury to Gabe Vincent. What does that look like? He's been critical for the Miami Heat.
Big time.
So we'll see what happens there with him. But yeah, I do wonder if that's a wrap on this. I think essentially it comes down to Game 6. Game 6 decides the series. Game 7 is going to Boston no matter what happens in Game 6. So Game 6 decides the series. Miami has one shot left to win this. Otherwise, it is done.
The last 2 games, the Heat have looked a little worn out. It looks like this run is starting to catch up with them. Jimmy Butler hasn't had the same kind of lift. There was a play last night towards the end of the first quarter where he got Rob Williams, and he has cooked Williams on switches over and over and over again. And he settled, he got Williams rocked back a little bit and then took a 3, but had no lift, and Williams just swatted it right back in his face, and then nearly recovered the loose ball, but it ended up going off him and out of bounds. But those kind of plays, Kyle Lowry did not look good. Kevin Love looks like he's just completely got nothing left. So yeah, and Gabe Vincent's got to play. Caleb Martin tweaked his knee. Bam Adebayo was holding his shoulder at the end of the game. There's just a lot of stuff kind of going wrong for Miami all at once. Plus, Waters started to find its level with the shooting variance and all that stuff. So I think we're this is a series, and we'll see. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if the Celtics come out and commit 20 turnovers and play like morons and lose in Game 6. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But I think we're in a great place. Where this is going to go.
Yeah, I mean, they're shooting lights out, red hot right now. The Celtics are, and we'll see if that continues. And the Heat actually didn't shoot poorly in last night's game, but was not enough. Particularly just the volume of threes is so different that's making a big difference there. And then the Celtics getting to the line more just by being a bit more physical in the paint. So you're seeing all of
a lot
of
turnovers too.
Yes.
16 turnovers, 13 of them were steals, so 13 live ball turnovers.
That'll kill you.
Yeah, that kills you. And then they were all over the offensive glass in the early part of the game too. And there was a point where I think they had 10 more shots taken than the Heat did. That's just that's not, that becomes, you have to shoot like 60% to make up for that kind of margin. And they were, not only was Boston getting the extra shots on second chances off offensive rebounds, but they were scoring repeatedly off of those as well.
And that's something that can be demoralizing for a team defensively. And that's particularly it's one thing if there's a big free throw discrepancy in one way and a shot attempt discrepancy in the other way, because unless you get an and one, every time you get to the free throw line, that's a shot attempt that you don't get. Just in terms of the way the stats are kept, it's still a possession, but we don't look at it that way. So, but you had Boston shooting more shots and getting more free throw attempts. than Miami, and that just goes to underscore the turnover problem for the Heat because they kept turning the ball over, and then that doesn't result in either free throws or a shot attempt. It This is not NBA, but the Arizona Cardinals just released DeAndre Hopkins.
Really? All
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Holy moly.
That's crazy. Huh.
Whoa.
All right. I guess.
Somebody
I don't know. Is that a big deal still?
that is a big
Is he
deal.
still good?
He's still very, very good. He's still
Okay.
very good. And he's going to get picked up by somebody and be a big factor for some team out there. Wow. My stock in Hollywood Brown just went up though, so I guess I'll take that. I'll take that. But
I
holy
assume these are
moly.
all real people that you're mentioning because I don't know any of these guys anymore.
I know you don't know football anymore, but hey, I will make up some names and everything just to kind of counteract any time
There we
that you
go.
make up the name of a G League player that
Except I've never done
see
that
through.
to you. Yeah.
You could.
I'm going to at some point.
This question says, can Austin Reeves accept a Lakers max before others make offers? So could the most the Lakers can offer, I believe it's 4 years, 53-ish million, right in that range.
Yeah, it's just shy of 60, I think.
Yeah. Could he accept that? Sure. Yeah, if the Lakers said, here's a contract offer, he could say deal, and that's that. I wouldn't advise him to do that. I would advise him to listen to all the different options and things like that, but it's within the realm of possibility. He could if he decided to.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to, and I think the Lakers are now understanding of that. I think both sides get that the best thing for Austin Reeves is to go sign an offer sheet with somebody that's in, for reasonable money for the Lakers, and then the Lakers match it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best place to go. There's been a lot of reporting that the max offer sheet anybody can give him is like 97 million. I believe, and I've worked out the math a couple times and checked this. I think it's just over 100 million, but that obviously comes with the way that would be structured for the Lakers would be like 12 million, 12 and a half million. Then it would jump up to 30 plus million each of the last 2 years. Basically it's like 25 million over the first 2 years and then 75 over the last two, just because that's the poison pill match structure on that. But that would be presumably at this point, at least when LeBron and AD's contracts run out and they're, either off the books or, into whatever their next deals are. So, that's just, life for the Lakers right there. I think, if they want to keep him, I think they're going to have to match an offer sheet because I don't think they're getting him for that, 58 million or whatever it is anymore. I think that ship has sailed.
What's interesting is Dave McMenamin had this earlier today. He was talking about D'Angelo Russell saying, I don't know where the market is. Like looking at the teams that have cap space, are there any teams that you could imagine as now Austin Reeves is a different story. He's a little bit younger and he's a very easy fit a lot of places.
Yeah.
Is there a market out there for D'Angelo Russell that you can think of, a cap space team that would be like, yeah, we'll give him a big offer?
Yeah, I mean, let's go through them, right? It's Friday. We got nothing else to do. Well, that's how we're going to spend some time. So the Detroit Pistons, maybe, probably not, but maybe. Right. I could maybe see that. Houston, no, that's Harden or not. Right. If it's Harden, he's not a fit with Harden. If it's not Harden, then you don't need him because you're going to presumably move forward with Green and Porter at the guard spots. Indiana, no, you've already got Halliburton and a ton of other guards. Oklahoma City, no, they've got, guards coming out their ears, right? Good ones, better ones than Russell. Orlando, probably not. Right, I think they would just as soon move forward with Fultz and Anthony and Suggs and Gary Harris. San Antonio, probably not. I mean, there's
maybe with the adding Wembanyama,
but yeah, I tend to think they'd go a different direction.
Yeah,
there, and then that kind of leaves Utah. That one, maybe, right? You could kind of maybe see that they don't have a lot at that position. That could maybe be the way that goes. This is one where I think for Russell, it's probably, I think it was reported he wanted 4 years, 100 million
when he was with Minnesota.
Probably slightly less than that, maybe 90, million-ish is probably where he comes in on. And I think, barring the Lakers going out and doing something crazy that we don't expect, like Kyrie or Fred VanVleet or something, then maybe you just go into a position where it's, all right, let's re-sign him, keep it reasonable, 20 to 25 million and go from there. Cause that's probably your best case scenario if you're D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah, McMenamin threw out the range of like 18 to 23 million, which
Yeah,
sounds that's
probably a
right in
little
there.
light. Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see what
Yep.
ultimately happens with it. But
I
you're right. I don't think that there's going to be like with Austin. I think somebody's going to give him that offer and see if the Lakers blink, and if not, even thinking they blink, they'll just to kind of mess with the Lakers. They'll throw an offer at him. With D'Lo, I don't know that market is really there. So it's going to be interesting to see how that negotiation ultimately plays out.
Yeah, I think too, a lot of people I've seen saying since the season ended, like, who cares? He can't play in playoff games. You can't have him. Well, the challenge is there's 82 games before you even get there.
Right.
Right. And if you're the Lakers, we know your base of your roster is going to be around two, not that AD's old, but two older and injury prone players, right? And AD and LeBron. So you've got to have other guys that can just, D'Angelo Russell can get you 25 in a regular season game without a whole lot of issue, right? Against most
Yep.
teams. He's pretty good. He's probably going to average, if they, let's say they were just to run it mostly back, right, with room around the edges, it's probably somewhere between 15 and 20 points per game.
Yep.
And, and that's fine. And then on the nights when LeBron and AD aren't out there, you give him the ball, let him be a little bit more of a focal point of the offense and see what you get out of it. So I'm not going to go, into that place where, this guy's useless because he can't play in a playoff game. Yeah, maybe you got to be covered, right? That you're only going to get 10 or 15 minutes out of him a night out of him in the playoffs, but there's still 82 games to get there first.
Yeah, I don't think they're in the Western Conference Finals without him.
Yeah,
So
I agree with that.
and that's we tend to get trapped in the recency bias. What did we just see? And so people are incredibly negative on D'Angelo Russell. Look, he was awful in the Western Conference. There's no getting around it. He was awful. But he
Yeah.
also was really good getting them there. I mean, shot better than 40% from three for the Lakers. So he did some good things. I'm not as
Absolutely.
down on him as most others are. But
No, I agree.
this is a league-wide question here that came up today. Aniket Mohan said, what do you think about the NBA's new challenge rule? Why is it limited to only one successful change? So the discussion taking place right now is giving teams a second challenge if they get the first one correct. So if you use a challenge and you're right, then you don't necessarily lose. You get another opportunity to challenge. And I think this is an interesting balance here, right? Because the NBA, they don't want to slow down the game any more than it's already slowed down. I mean, my God, playoff games last forever when they go to these TV timeouts and the commercials run for 5 minutes or whatever it is. They don't want to slow it down anymore. But at the same time, we also see a ton of calls just blown in the NBA. Yeah. And so you have to have, and I'm not even saying that's necessarily the officials' fault. I mean, there's plenty of criticism you can throw at officials, but the NBA is an insanely fast game with some of the best athletes in the world, and the limitations of the human eye and just human judgment it means there's going to be mistakes. There's no getting around it. Even if you have the absolute best officials in the entire world, they are going to make mistakes. So I think having the challenge is necessary, but you also have to strike that balance between the amount of time it takes to, number one, issue the challenge. How long does it take to review? How many challenges do you get stopping the game? And so finding that right balance is what's critical for the NBA. I do agree that ultimately there should be an extra challenge given if you get the first one right. But I'd like to see the length of time of the challenges cut down. Like put a time limit on how long the refs can actually sit there and look at it. And then if they can't figure it out, then you move on and you stick with the call.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they've made major strides in this. They have that now fourth official that reviews things like, was the foot on the line? Did it come before or after the shot clock? And they'll correct those as quick as they can in live game action. So those are good. I would like to see this turn into, hey, there's a fourth guy who is a referee, right? And they rotate guys through the in Secaucus now anyway, where they review all the stuff. Whoever's being rotated through there on that night, whether it's regular season or playoffs, they make the call, right? They're the ones who review it. Because I think there's a sense too. There's always been, if I'm the one making the call on the floor, like it's hard to overrule myself. It's
Correct.
easy when it's something like, I thought it went off this guy, went off the other guy. We can all see it now when we slow it down, and we all move on, right? But it's when it's like that maybe it was a block, maybe it was a charge, those kind of things. That's where it gets kind of messy in those spots. So I think that's where I don't want this to turn into, every time you challenge, if you get it right, you get it back, because we don't need that, right? That's too much. I think they've done a good job keeping these games moving. They've changed the end of games, where each side, can only use 2 timeouts under 3 minutes to play and all that sort of stuff. Like, let's just keep things going. But I do think this would be a good change to give them a second challenge if they get the first one correct.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a game where the team has to use a challenge on something that they probably shouldn't have to. Like it was a
Mhm.
call that just was clearly wrong, and the official takes 10 seconds to run over and go, "Oh yeah, the dude was
Yeah.
standing out of bounds or something," and they just missed it. And then you're like, "Okay, well, cool, we got the ball back, but man, it sure hurts to have to use a challenge on something like
Yeah.
that." And you really are wishing that you had another one, and it can be a factor in deciding games down the stretch. So, I
Yep.
think it would be a good change as well. Michael says, "What is Julius Randle's trade value? I can see him with a bunch of picks for a superstar, but that deal might be a while, and I think we need more shooting now." So obviously a Knicks question here. Keith, I'm going to pull up Randle's contracts. I don't recall off the top of my head how many years he has left on it. Um, this
Like
is
3, right?
so Julius Randle, yes, 3 years after this one, he has a player option for 2025 for 29.4 million. So the contract looks like this: 25.6
It's
next
actually
season.
bumped up. So,
Oh, did it?
because he hit some incentives this year. So it's
Oh, he did. That's
28.2,
right.
30.3, and 32.4.
So it has
Um,
bumped up here. Oh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, because he made All Star, made All NBA,
I'm
but
seeing that
still,
now.
I mean, not enough to matter. It's
Sure.
basically 28 to 32 million.
And I like over on Spot Track, you can see the percentage of the cap
Mm-hmm.
that it takes up, because I think that's going to be really important for our frame of reference when we're talking about the,
Exactly.
especially with as the cap goes up,
Yep.
right? Because there's always that sticker shock. But when we look at the percentage of the cap, he's sitting right around 21%, 20% of the cap. So do you think on that contract with the player option in the final year, does he have how much positive value do you think he has, or does he have positive value?
It's really hard because on the one hand, I mean, I just went through this with D'Angelo Russell, right? Where it's like
Sure.
these guys have value because the regular season does so matter. You're going to play 82 games. But I think a guy like Randall, it's kind of the same boat, right? I mean, this was an all NBA guy, and that wasn't a ridiculous all NBA selection either. That's not
No.
one where it's like, oh my God, what
25,
happened?
10, and 4 this season.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely deserving. But we also have now a history in the playoffs. He kind of flames out, right? Guys can game plan for him and make it really tough on him to score. And I think what you ideally want is if Julius Randle is your like third best player, you're probably pretty good,
Yeah.
right? And the Knicks are maybe trending in that direction, right? I think Jalen Brunson's their best guy now. I
Hmm.
think he's kind of the engine that makes them go. Randall for now is still their second guy. I'm not going to quit on RJ yet. Maybe he gets there. I don't know. But I think that probably the second best guy is just not on the roster yet, right? How do you go get him? And then that becomes, is Randall the one you use to go get him with that? And that's a very long way of saying I I think he's got decent value. I don't know that it's super positive. I don't know that
Hmm.
anybody's blowing the Knicks away with an offer to get him, but I also don't think he's bad enough where if you put him into a trade, you're having to pay a team to take him on. I don't
Right.
think we're in that spot
No.
either. So it's probably slightly above neutral, which is seems probably kind of fair for where he's at.
So he's, I mean, again, 25, 10, and 4, shot 34% from three, which is a big uptick for him this season. Shot 30% the season before. So when I look at this, though, I think just conceptually, right? If a team is trading, if the goal for the Knicks is to get a star, typically teams that are trading stars are looking for future assets, right? They're looking for draft picks. They're looking for young players. And Julius Randle's not old, but he's 28. He's in his prime.
Mhm.
So I wonder if that might be an impediment. Because essentially, if you're going to make Randle the centerpiece of a trade, unless you're going to get into maybe you just get into a 3-team deal or something like that. But if you're a team that's looking to trade away a star, just nameless player X, I don't know if Julius Randle is the piece that you want back. Again, typically teams that are trading these stars are looking to rebuild things for the future. So
Yep.
that could be a hurdle. But again, you could solve that potentially by getting a third team involved in something like this. But that's why I wonder if Randle is the piece though that even winds up getting moved if it's a star level trade.
Yeah, that's a hard thing, right? It need to be almost like a change of scenery type trade where it's,
Hmm.
hey, you need a big, we need a wing, and let's, well, let's, partner up here and, make it happen and rebalance things a little bit, that way. So, yeah, I could see it in that sense, but I'm with you on that. That does make it a little more tough. Just
Yeah.
as an aside to close the book a little bit here, Marcus Smart and Julius Randle both just completed their 10th season in the
Oh
league,
my God.
right?
How is
Crazy.
that possible?
Yeah, I don't even know. It's nuts,
Oh
right?
man.
Yeah.
I remember that. God, I sound old. I remember that draft like it was yesterday, Keith.
Yep.
That
All
that
right.
is
Yeah, I'm
insane.
sorry. Next year, this coming year will be their 10th. Sorry,
Still,
but still, yeah. Yep.
that's crazy.
Crazy, right?
That is
Yeah.
crazy.
I don't
That is
even,
crazy.
yeah. That it's like there's days when I still remember the whole Celtics are trading KG and Pierce and everybody to kind of start the rebuild under it, and it feels like that was yesterday, and that was a decade ago.
Keith, I can remember the day the Lakers and Celtics made that trade way back in the early 2000s with was that with Chris Mim and
Yeah.
what was it? Marcus Banks was gonna be in the
Yep.
deal and then he wasn't, and yeah, all that stuff.
Chris
Gary
Mim.
Payton. Yeah. Oh
Yep.
boy. Man, those were the days. Those were the days. Roberto said, if Bob Myers leaves the Warriors, where do you see him going? And then is there a world in which he winds up with the Lakers somehow? So I'll just answer the second part. No, I don't see that happening. The Lakers gave Rob Pelinka an extension. They were heavily criticized for doing so, but they did. I don't see them moving on from him right now, especially when the team just went from the 7th seed to the Western Conference Finals. I don't see that happening. But where could he go if he leaves? I mean, there have been a lot of rumors about a few different teams potentially chasing after him. Where do you think he lands ultimately, and in what role?
Yeah, I think there's a chance he takes the year off, right? We
Yeah.
just saw the one front office role get filled that was in Washington. They hired Michael Winger, and people instantly went to they went into like, oh well, Myers could go to the Clippers, right? That could be where he could land. But Lawrence Frank runs the front office there, and I don't think they're down on Lawrence Frank. I don't think Myers is going to go in and work underneath anybody but the owner. So I think it's probably takes a year off and then kind of sees where things are. But my guess is just like with the Warriors players, this everybody comes to their senses here, and he just sticks in Golden State.
Hmm. Yeah, wouldn't surprise me at all. I don't know what the negotiations look like there in terms of that contract situation, everything with Bob Myers, but again, I would not be shocked if he just winds up staying. And if he does go somewhere, he could very well just take a year off and kind of wait and see what happens, and then pick a spot from there. Because I don't know if there's an obvious
Mhm.
place for him to land right now.
Yep. Trevor, guy Tony PR in the chat, who's I think he's here almost every week, says a
Hmm.
super chat got lost, but he got charged. I don't know if you have it or no. Okay.
I don't.
If not,
I'll
Tony,
dig through it.
just ask your question. Don't pay again. Just ask your question. We'll pull it.
Yeah, just ask the question.
Yep.
We'll get to
Just
it.
ask it in the chat. And we'll pull it.
Yep.
Are the
Here, I've
Lakers
got one.
allowed?
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry. I was just Alex G. Are the Lakers allowed to demote Palinka to assistant GM? Does his contract include no demotions? We don't know what his
Yeah.
contract does and doesn't include. In general, that's not something that happens.
Right.
Every once in a while, what you'll see is like this is kind of how it went down with Travis Schlenk, where it was like, oh, you're going to become a special advisor, and everybody knows special advisor means, all right, we're going to pay you, but please go away. You're not going to
Right.
be involved. So I think that's more likely the way it would go with Rob Pelinka, if anything. But the Lakers aren't there, right? I think they're very happy with the job. He's done. He won a title, and he remade this roster on the fly into a team that I know it ended sourly, but he made it all the way to the West Finals with that team. So I don't think there's any real rush for them to move on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Mission 86 said if NBA teams jettisoned every player who had a bad playoff series, they would quickly run out of players.
That's
That
how
is
that's
true.
how I achieve my dream of playing in the NBA. Still in my mid 40s, is they get rid of everybody, and they're literally like, "All right, we need you," and I'll be ready to go.
Oh
We'll
man,
have to switch to half court because I'm not running up and down full court for
we'll do that.
multiple
We'll
days.
roll the other basket all the way to
Yeah,
half court and
that's it.
play
Yeah,
play a small sided game. Yeah, we can do that. We can do that, or just play. You got to take it out past the 3 point line, and then next thing you know, we're getting into like big three territory and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
There we
But
go.
But in any event, yeah, look, there's lots of The players have bad playoff series. It happens. Guys go through slumps.
Yeah.
It happens. I know the knee jerk when something hurts you, the knee jerk reaction is to lash out, right? And so
Sure.
that guy hurt me. Get him off my team. Get this guy
Yeah.
gone, right? And that's the way it goes. But yes, if we did that every single time somebody had a bad playoff series, I mean, my God, Kobe would have been banished after shooting air balls against Utah way,
Oh
way,
my
way
gosh.
back in the day, right?
Yeah. Imagine, right? Like if they had just given up on him, right?
Oh
Just how
man.
differently the trajectory would be, at that point for him and like the Lakers and everything else. I also think too, it only becomes an issue when it becomes multiple years in a row,
Hmm.
right? Where it's like, or not in a row, but just at least multiple times. Like going back to the Julius Randle conversation, this is twice now he's not been great in the playoffs. So you start to wonder, like, is this just a thing, or can we kind of come back from
Right.
this and figure it out with the right kind of guys? I tend to think it's more that second one. I think if he's in a better role where he's not so relied upon, he'll look better in the playoffs. But when it's
Yeah.
hey, you got to create everything that Jalen Brunson doesn't, we'll go to a mess.
All right. Wyatt said, "Hey Keith, can you go through the different permutations of Jaylen Brown and the Celtics leading up to the next season's deadline? 300 million seems reckless."
Yeah, so essentially with this, Jalen Brown qualified for the so-called supermax, which is the 35% of the cap extension. So Brown is under contract for next season to the Celtics. He's hit all of his incentives. So his number for the Celtics for next year is now, let me make sure I get it right, 31.8 million. So he is locked in under contract to Boston for next season. So what happens is they can offer him a 5-year deal worth it's a little over 290 million. It'll be somewhere between 290, 295, depends on where the cap ultimately settles. But they can give him that. Then he becomes not eligible to be traded for a year. So Celtics can offer him that on July 1st. They can officially say, here you go, here's your Supermax extension. Well, let's go. The reality, so then it kind of becomes in Jaylen Brown's court, right? Where Jaylen Brown says, yes, I signed, and we go.
Mhm.
And like I will always say, year or two in, things aren't going the way I want them to. You ask for a trade. It's just how the league works now. The other option is Brown says, no, I'm good. Now, the only reason for him to say, no, I'm good is because he doesn't really want to be with the Celtics anymore. Because he's not in a position where it's like, well, let me put pressure on them to make moves and put a good team around me. He's already
Right.
in that spot. And he cannot make any more money because when that extension kicks in with the 24-25 season, it would be for 35% of the cap. So if he says no, that's when then the Celtics need to say, all right, we need to explore trades, right? Because he's probably leaving in the offseason and we don't want to lose him for nothing. Now, the other option is Boston doesn't have to offer him the full amount of money. If they offer it as a designated player deal, they can offer him anywhere between 30 and 35%. I mean, they could offer him less. They're not going to.
Sure.
But you could say, hey, 35 is just a little rich for us. What about 32? This is what the Utah Jazz did with Rudy Gobert back in the day. Now, that was also in part because the Jazz didn't want to lock themselves in because under those old rules, you could only have 2 supermax players. So they didn't want to get into too big of a mess with that. So I think, we're in a different world now. They eliminated that. You can have as many supermax guys as you can get to on your roster at once. But that's kind of where this is with Jaylen Brown. And, so I think if he gets offered it and turns it down on July 1st, I don't even think we get to the deadline. I think all of a sudden it becomes he's probably the single biggest name on the trade market at the start of this summer. Right? Second team All NBA player, just heading into his prime years. Like that, those guys don't come available all that often.
Yeah, that would be a very clear indication that he's not sticking around. And again, that's not what I expect to happen though. Today's NBA is all about get the money now, figure out the destination later, which is where we were like 10 years ago in the league, and now we've kind of come back to this point. So it would surprise me. And again, Jaylen Brown is kind of his own dude, so it's not like it would be a total shock. But
Sure.
still, nonetheless, just based on the current trends in the NBA, I would be surprised if he didn't take the deal. And then if he really, really wanted out a year from now, whatever, however long, he could start asking about a trade and all that sort of stuff.
Correct.
But so that I think is the most likely path, but it is Jaylen Brown. So who knows? He may ultimately say, if he says,
Absolutely.
hey, no, I'm not signing this, that's it. Then you got to
Yep.
put him on the market.
Yep.
And he knows that.
Without a doubt. Yeah, he knows that. He gets it. I mean, he's a smart guy. He also gets the business of all of it. So, yep.
Okay, so Tony PR said, math to get Kyrie. I'm assuming we mean for the Lakers here. I have him that he could sign as a free agent for 4 years, 200, renouncing everyone except Vando and Max. So Vanderbilt is just under 5 million, Max Christie just under 2 million for next season. So you essentially are wiping the deck clean for the Lakers, with the exception of LeBron, AD, Vanderbilt, and Max. I don't know if that gets you to 200, but then after
It
signing Kyrie,
doesn't.
match Austin Reeves and Rui. Well, you wouldn't be able to do that because Rui's cap hold is like 18 million and change.
Yep.
So you would have to get rid of his cap hold just to give Kyrie that kind of an offer in free agency. Austin Reeves has a low cap hold at about 2 million. So you could keep that cap hold on your books. But again, if you've got Austin's 2 million, Max's 2 million, Vanderbilt is almost 5 million. So then you've got almost 9 million sitting on your books in addition to LeBron and AD, which makes it that much more difficult to give Kyrie the amount that you're talking about. So he said, is that even possible? Without having the numbers in front of me, just in my head, my answer is no. Keith, I know you have the numbers in front of you.
Yeah, it's not. In that scenario, they'd be at 96.1 million. So that seems like initially, right? That's like, oh, well, that's still 38 million in cap space, roughly. But then you get to add in the roster charges, which, if anybody doesn't know what a roster charge is you have to have at least 12 somethings on the roster. So whether it's guaranteed salary, non-guaranteed salary, or cap holds for draft picks or players, you have to, that number has to be at 12. If it's not, you get a roster charge for everyone that you're under, and that's a minimum roster charge. So those hit you at roughly $1 million a piece in those situations. So what happens in that spot is you get hit with those roster charges, and now you're down to 20 some odd million in space in that point, and that's just not going to be enough to get Kyrie. It's the Kyrie stuff. It almost has to be a sign and trade, barring Kyrie signing for some insane amount less than what he can. His first year salary, 46.9 million. Let's just say the Lakers could get to that number. It'd be 46.9 million, and that would works out to a little over 201 million for the total number that he could get. So you're right in range on that one. It's just really hard to see him taking that much less. Less, sure, I could see it if he really wants to be there, but that much less, I don't think so.
I've been trying to tell everybody because these rumors have not, and they're not going away until Kyrie puts pen to paper in Dallas or wherever. But we're going to be talking about these rumors all off season. But I've been telling everybody who will listen that, look, while there are some paths to get there, it's very, very difficult to make something happen. And even then, even if you can just get him on the roster, building out any kind of a competent team around whatever is left on your roster is going to be extremely difficult because you're essentially going to be limited to veteran minimums the rest of the way, with the exception of maybe you can keep Austin's cap hold on the books or something like that. But getting to Kyrie on the Lakers is extreme, unless Kyrie does something like, hey, I'll play for the mid-level, right? Like something totally unexpected, right? That's not happening. But I always just leave that because it's going to happen. Like he does something crazy, says, okay, I'll play for 20 million or something. And then everybody runs back and says, see, you guys said it would never happen. Look, aside from something unexpected taking place in terms of him taking way less, it's extremely, extremely difficult to get Kyrie onto the Lakers.
And I'll say this too, in a sign and trade scenario, even in that situation, unless he's taking way less, they run into hard cap issues. If you do that, if you sign and trade for a player, you become hard capped. If you are the acquiring side, someone asked about Fred VanVleet and would that hard cap the Raptors? It doesn't. You're not hard capped when you trade a player away in a sign and trade. It's only acquiring the guy, and that would become a tricky thing then to work around, right? I mean, I know you and I did multiple shows where we went through, right? Like, can the Lakers add a player on the buyout market or just sign a free agent from the G League? I sat here one day and figured it out, on the show. All right, well, it's January. It was like whatever it was like March 2nd, they can add the second guy and these kind of things. Cause when you're under that hard cap, that's it. You can't go over it. There's no exceptions to that. Nothing. So that starts to get really tricky too. This is where I get super annoyed, and not with anybody here asking, But with like our peers, they don't probably consider us to be their peers, but I consider them to be our peers because I'm trying to feel good about the work we do. But when people go on TV or on the radio and they're prominent voices and they're like, yeah, the Lakers can get Kyrie Irving. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean anybody can get anybody when they're a free agent in theory, but it's just, now we start living in fantasy land a little bit, right?
Sure.
Where it's like, all right, sure, but these are not realistic things to live in. And I tend to be probably too hyper realistic with this stuff. I'll discount things that I don't
Hmm.
think are going to happen. And every year I'm surprised with like, wow, that guy took less, or this team traded player X, and those kind of things happen. But that's what makes it fun, right?
Sure.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. We try to give everybody just a realistic. What I don't want is July 8th. The Lakers don't. Kyrie is re-signed in Dallas, and a bunch of Lakers fans are running around going, why didn't the Lakers get Kyrie? They could have just signed him. They should have signed him, and all that. I just want people to be
Yeah.
aware of how perilous that journey is to actually
Yeah.
get him onto the Lakers.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not, this is not Premier League soccer or Major League Baseball where the richest clubs can just sign whoever they want, right? It just doesn't work that way. They're very, strict and defined rules that you work under when you get to these points. And then that's without even adding in where we're going a year from now with
Hmm.
even more, penalties for being those super expensive teams. And, this is going to be where I'll end up beating a dead horse on this, but we've seen the Lakers with, older, somewhat injury prone guard around LeBron and AD and a whole bunch of minimum signings. And it wasn't very good for 2 straight years. Like, I don't know why, they want to rush right back into that. And yes,
Hmm.
Kyrie is a much better player than Russell Westbrook at this point in his career. But the reality is, I don't know that he's any more reliable as far as availability goes. Probably isn't, or probably far
Oh no,
less. And
I thought Russell
that's just,
Westbrook. Russell
yeah,
Westbrook was very available. He was
yeah, big time.
very rarely
Yeah.
injured, and
So,
that was a great quality they had. But Kyrie is
yeah.
definitely not that.
Yeah, that's it. So I think, I would really, really worry about, if that's the direction they went with, those three and Austin Reeves and then fill it out with minimums. Like, boy,
Yeah,
that gets scary to me.
it's in their DNA to chase stars,
Hmm.
and I'm just wondering if they can resist, if they can resist the temptation, like
Yeah.
sitting right there.
Especially if
What is
he
it?
says that's where he wants to be, then,
Yeah, it's like the old Simpsons episode where Lisa was doing an experiment on Bart with a cupcake that was
yes.
electrocuted, and
Yep.
he just kept reaching for it and reaching for it and reaching for it, and just never
Yep.
learning that it was
Yep.
shocking him. Yep. Jamie said, "What is your idea of rewarding upsets in the playoffs? Winner of a series takes the better seeding. Example: Miami using Milwaukee's 1 seed. So
Oh
if
God, I hate
if you
this.
what's that?
I hate this. Like, no.
Yeah,
Like,
because it
just
takes
because
one
you pulled
series
off
to.
an upset doesn't mean that you're like, that's why would you punish the other good teams that them won their series just because you pulled off an upset? Nah,
I mean, it would make things interesting in that sense, but
sure.
it would create more of a possibility for future upsets. So, like say in this example that if you're the 8 seed and you beat the 1 seed, and suddenly you get to go into your second round matchup with home court advantage, like that increases the probability of the lower seeded team going, getting another upset and continuing to go.
Yeah.
But is that doesn't that just devalue the regular season that much more?
Yeah, even
And is that
more.
really what we
Yeah.
want?
Yeah, no, and I like with where the league is headed now with some of this parity stuff, and we'll see if this comes to fruition over the next several years. Like 3-6 isn't really that big of an upset anymore, right? So if you're the 6 seed and you win, now you get home court potentially moving forward. If there's another upset, and then yeah, I don't like that idea at all. Like I will say I don't hate the idea of reseeding like the NFL does. Like now that would mean you have to wait and then line up every series to start
Mhm.
at the same time. And that's been the problem is right the NBA likes to get ahead of it just so they're kind of continuously feeding us games in those early rounds. But we'll see.
Causing Lyrics said Nas Reed, Brooke Lopez, assuming that's Kristaps Porzingis, Jay Crowder. Thoughts?
I
Good players?
mean, yeah, free agent list of free
Well,
agents.
sure.
I don't. Yeah, causing lyric. If you're still here, give us a little more detail. If you're just looking for players,
The super chats, like sometimes they're limited in terms of like the higher level of the super, the more you get to write.
got it.
So people, so
Okay.
he maybe they were just kind of
Sure.
shortened here because of the super chat. But what do you think is the market value? Let's just do that. What's the market value of these guys? What does Nas Reed get? I would assume Brooke Lopez is
Sure.
going to get significantly more than Nas Reed, but
Sure.
nonetheless, what are we thinking is the going rate for these guys?
Yeah, I think Brooke Lopez, he's limited because of over 38 rule, but I would give him 3 years, 60 million without even blinking an eye.
Yeah,
20
he made
million.
13 this year.
Yeah, and if you
So he
could,
needs to do a raise.
and if you could start him high, right, and have the contract descend year to year, that'd be even better, right? For him,
Mm-hmm.
Porzingis, I think people are sleeping on him a little bit.
Yes.
He had a really, really good year, and he was mostly healthy. He was very, very good this season. So he's probably going to get another, probably near max deal. He might be one where instead of getting the full max, maybe he gets a 5th year if he'll come down a little bit off of the max kind of deal, and that might be where that goes. I expect we said this the other day. We're going to find out how does Michael Winger feel about this guy. Does he like him or not? And same with Kyle Kuzma, because I thought it was very interesting, just as an aside on the Wizards, that it's come out now that Ted Leonsis is like, look, if you want to rebuild, you've got full control. Go. Like that becomes really, really interesting for the Lakers to go after. They can't get Porzingis. He's just going
No,
to be
he's
way
too
too
expensive. And I
expensive.
think the same will probably be true of Brooke Lopez
Yep,
as well.
agreed. Jay
Um,
Crowder, yeah, sure. If
yeah.
they've got the taxpayer or the non-taxpayer mid-level, Jay Crowder's probably in that range-ish. Nas Reed, yeah, that one's a little tougher. I think he's, if you had the
He's
full
been good.
non-taxpayer, maybe you could get him for that, but I don't know. But yeah, Jay Crowder, I mean, you can fill it out. I don't hate the Jay Crowder idea for them just to give him a little more size in the wing, but he did not look good with Milwaukee, so I'm not sure. I think you Nas Reed, that's kind of thinking the right direction. Like I think that's the kind of get another big in there for sure. Maybe could play with AD a little bit too if AD slid over to the 4. So I think those are the right kind of thoughts on that. I think if I'm the Lakers, I got to come away with a 4 and a 4-5 combo guy. Guy I
Yep.
really like for the Lakers if they can get him is Trey Lyles. I thought he had
I
an
like that.
outstanding season for the Kings, and I think he'd be very affordable. And I think he could really fill a nice role playing as a 4-5 for that team.
I like that. That's a good call on Lyles. That would be a really good fit. This one said, Kriya said, if I see any more people saying get rid of D'Lo and get Kyrie, Van Vliet, or Trey, I'm going to lose my marbles. Prepare for those marbles to get lost. It is the NBA offseason, and I whatever the over under is on the number of times I have to say the name Kyrie Irving this summer, take the over.
Yeah.
Take the over. Take the over, because
that big time.
that's going to continue to be a thing.
I think of those guys, I'll rank them this order in scenario. Van Vliet in an opt-in trade where he opts in for next season and then the Lakers trade for him.
You're talking about likelihood of happening or preference?
Yeah, likelihood of happening. Yes.
Okay.
Then Trae Young, just because it's a straight trade. The Lakers would probably be sign and trade some guys away to get him. Plus, Trae Young would be my top choice out of all these guys because he's really, really good and he's still young-ish, right? No pun intended. So, there. And then Kyrie, we explained it already why that's so hard.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree with that. Lumbee said Lakers trade guaranteed contract. Oh, so you guarantee Bamba's contract and trade him with the 29 first to the Bulls for Alex Caruso. Move Austin to the 1, Caruso to the 2. I don't know. What do the Bulls move Caruso for a pick and an expiring contract?
That becomes super interesting if the Bulls are like, if they say, all right, we're going to let Vucevic go. If they basically say, hey, we've got to, tear this thing down and start over around Zach LaVine, then that becomes kind of an interesting type of trade, just because you're getting a pick. And that pick is far enough out that who knows what that, right? It could be anything, in 2029. That's, pretty far out here. So, yeah, I don't hate that idea. I don't know that on its face I would do that if I'm Chicago. If I'm trying to be competitive next season, I'm not doing that. Like I'd
Yeah,
rather have Alex Caruso. And Alex Caruso just made the all defense team.
he
Like
did.
he's really, really good. Plus, something I've been thinking about a lot is why are they not just and I even wrote this earlier this week of they got to figure out something at point guard. Why not just plug Caruso in at the point? DeRozan and Levine are going to run a lot of the offense anyway. Just
Yeah.
let Caruso start there. Like
Ask
I
him
don't
to
know.
be a 3-and-D style point guard, like a
Mhm.
I don't want to say like I like Alex Caruso a lot, so I don't want this to sound negative, but kind of almost like a poor man's Drew Holiday,
Oh my
where
god,
Giannis,
dude!
what?
That's exactly what I was going to say. A poor man's Drew Holiday.
We are on the
It's so
same
funny.
page, Keith. We are on the
Wow.
same page
I
here.
was like, if he says poor man's Drew Holiday, I'm going to lose it. That is too funny. Yeah.
Oh, gotta love the NBA front office show, right, everybody? We are in sync on this. Okay, Mission 86 said, not about Kyrie, just curious. Okay, this is interesting. If a $30 million player really wants to play for a team and accepts a minimum, so somebody who's worth way more than a minimum
I'm
says,
gonna, yeah.
I'll come play for a minimum. Who gets final say? Can the agent or the NBA veto that? Can teams veto that? So let's say player X, whoever is an all-star, potentially all NBA caliber player, goes and signs with a team on a minimum deal just because he really wants to be with that club. Can anything be done to stop that, or is that simply, well, he's taken that much less to play, and that's his choice?
So in theory, nobody could stop it, but every single transaction has to be approved by the league. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the league would have a huge problem here. I also don't know that an agent or the Players Association would be on board with this. We've seen guys take pay cuts, occasionally even major pay cuts. James Harden did it last summer.
Yeah,
He
Dirk.
took a major pay cut to stay in Philadelphia and give them the ability to get PJ Tucker and Daniel House. So no one can veto it except for the league. And what you would run into there is that's where you run into, you'd get collusion involved, you'd get
Mm-hmm.
for the good of the game clauses involved and all sorts of things like that. So now personally, I would love to see it happen just because what would happen? Where would this go? And we'll just use Kyrie as the example. If Kyrie was like, I really want to be in the Lakers, and I'll take the minimum, or I'll take
Yeah,
the non-taxpayer MLE or $5 million or whatever it is.
right.
Like, I would be very curious to see how that plays out. I don't think that will happen. Because I struggle to see a player doing it, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it would be really, really interesting.
Well, one of the things that people don't consider a lot, because we tend to look at things from the team perspective and, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be great to get this player on this number and all of that. And maybe even the player says, I've made hundreds of millions over the course of my career. All I could handle playing a year for cheap. The problem is when the Players Association comes in, because the Players Association and other players, not necessarily that player, but other players are going to look at that and say, no, 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 you can't do that. This is something LeBron has talked about for years
Mhm.
about why he won't take a pay cut anymore. Because what happened was, as soon as he did, then other teams around the NBA went to their players and said, see, LeBron's doing it. So how about we do this here?
Yeah.
If you set that precedent, it's not just about you, it's about what that is going to mean for everybody else around the NBA. If it's Kyrie says, I'll go play for $2 million or something, or 3 million, whatever his minimum would be, um, you can bet teams are going to be floating that idea to other players saying, well, Kyrie did it and this would really give us a layup, and then putting
Yeah.
other players in that position where they're being pressured to do something like that as well. And that, I think, is something the Players Association and the vast majority of the players don't want to see.
No, and it's only going to get worse as we get into these, the super tax
Yeah.
type teams, right? Because in this world where if this was a thing, you could have the Warriors go to Draymond Green and say, "Hey, can you take $7 million next year? Like let's do that because now that basically clears our books up quite a bit, and
Mm-hmm.
we can go." And then when Clay comes off, hey Clay, what about $10 million? Somebody said a la Tim Duncan. Yeah, Tim Duncan took a lot less money. Tim Duncan also wasn't Tim Duncan at the end of his career either.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about a player who is truly worth $30 million, taking a minimum or down in that range. That's that becomes a a thing. But yeah, I don't think that's going to be a thing we're going to see guys do. If a guy's worth $10 million and takes 5, that's sure. We see stuff like that regularly. It's like, oh, this player had the who was it a couple years ago? Otto Porter Jr. when he joined the Warriors.
Hmm.
He had offers for the taxpayer mid-level amount, which was like 7 million ish that year, a little under that, like 5.5, 6 million. But he took a minimum from the Warriors because in reality, once you hit a point on the minimum, yeah, you hit the cap at like a $1.9 million cap and tax charge, but your actual salary is coming in closer to 3. So you're really not giving up all that much money. And that's part of where, I've seen some people say, the Clippers probably have a leg up with Westbrook because most teams are going to be like, we don't really want to give you more than the taxpayer MLE, which is 5 million next year. His actual pay is going to be about 3 million on a league minimum. Why would he leave a good situation where he played a lot and is a big part of the team? So, but yeah, it's a good question because it's it's in theory something that could happen, but yeah, I don't think it's going to go down like this.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Tavarius said Wemby at the 4, Collins at the 5, Sohan at the 3, Devin Vassell at the 2, and PG1. What do you think the Spurs will be able to get a first for him?
I don't know who him
for
is.
Who?
Yeah. Tell us who him is and we can go.
Yeah.
From there.
Yeah, I don't know what that, but I mean, is that could wind up being essentially what the Spurs are looking like their lineup? Could be.
Man, I love it. I'm beyond excited if that's the way this flows into next year. I don't think it's PG Paul George. I think it just means point guard.
Yeah.
Yes, but would be able to get a first for who. Okay, let us know, Tavarius.
Yeah, we can figure that out and see what he wants, what he's actually looking at there.
I'm him in the chat.
All right. Zuni said, "Can the Lakers go get Jordan Clarkson and Kuzma and bring them back?" I'd like if you wanted to gut your roster in order to have enough free agent money. Unless I don't know, like, could you get Clarkson for a mid-level if you had the full mid-level?
Probably not. I think that's a little light.
You're definitely not getting Kuzma for that. So
no, Kuzma's going to be a 20 to 25 million guy, easy this summer. Yeah. Him equals Reeves, but that's not. Could you get a first for him? I don't. All right.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna. We'll wait and see if he chimes back in.
But you know what's interesting is he listed that lineup. There was no Keldon Johnson.
Yeah. Maybe that's who it was. I don't know.
Maybe. Let's see. This one said, "Does LeBron need a third star because of age?" That's something that's been floating around. That LeBron wants to, and look, this has been a thing for years, though, that LeBron doesn't want the offense to run through him and all of that. Mm-hmm. But that LeBron really seriously, actually, this time wants to take more of a backseat moving forward, understands that he needs to, and that maybe you need somebody else who can do some heavy lifting. Again, though, even if LeBron's saying, "Hey, I would like to take a backseat," okay, but then if it's not even if it's Kyrie, but just a solid player that you go get, that you burn all your resources to get, it's that player, Anthony Davis, LeBron trying to take a back seat, and veteran minimums. That probably isn't going to work out so well.
Yeah, I just think depth is more important for this team than adding a third star. I think they need to go into the regular season with 10 to 12 guys that they feel good about being able to play, because most nights they're probably not going to have somebody, right? Well, one of their main guys is going to be missing time, right? I loosely, when I start building stuff out, thinking about the offseason, I loosely will pencil guys in for how many games. And I have LeBron and AD each 60 games. Like, I'd be shocked if they play much more than that. I think there's a world where we don't see LeBron play next year until we get close to Christmas, maybe. But that's complete reckless speculation because we have no idea with that one. But we'll see. With that, somebody asked, there. Oh, okay, we get that one.
Okay, so Mr. Easley said, "If you two are the Blazers GM, what do you do with Dame?" I mean, I think it's, I think the number 3 pick. And I think 3 and 10 with the Blazers and the Mavs are the two most likely picks to get moved to where I 90% certain the Mavs are going to move their pick, because how do you go to Luka and say, hey, here's this rookie we got with the 10th pick?
Do you see
3,
him running the stairs, by the
I
way?
didn't. I
It's
didn't.
there's three of them running a very steep and long set of stairs.
Oh,
Looks good.
all right.
So
Luka
yeah,
getting ready, gonna go a little Rocky Balboa style there. Get ready
yeah,
for next season. But I think it's time to rip off the Band-Aid if I'm Portland, and make that move and go ahead and
yeah.
trade him while you can. Again, if they decide no, we don't want to, we're going to try one more time. I understand it. I get it. He's the greatest Blazer ever. You don't want it to move on. You don't want to do that. The possibility is there for him to retire as a Blazer. I get all that. I'm just thinking for the long term for the club, does it make sense to continue just burning through assets in this attempt to win right now around Dame? I guess it depends on what's out there for the number 3 pick. Can you really get like a star level player for that 3rd pick? If so, okay, but if that's not there, like, I'm not throwing that out there just to get a guy who can win now that maybe isn't necessarily the right long-term fit or anything. If I'm the Blazers, you have to start thinking about the future at some point.
Yeah, I don't really have anything. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. If I can get a young-ish star for that 3rd pick, where that guy could be, because nothing says we're not right back in the same spot next year and the year after and the year after, and that guy can be kind of all right. I'm going to build around him moving forward. Then I probably keep Dave. But other than that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably moving on.
All right, GCB, we'll do a few more of these. Said, do you think the NBA should guarantee every team a top 5 draft pick every 6 years to keep teams fresh with too much young talent? So just rotate through the top 5 picks.
I mean, that
And
was
then,
Mike Zarin's plan, right?
yeah,
With the wheel,
the
where
wheel.
the wheel goes around in a cycle, and every year, it's a 30-year cycle, and every 30 years you end up with one of each of the 30 picks, and it was all mathematically arranged where like it'd be like one year you'd get one, and then the next year you'd get like, I don't remember, but it's like 26. You can Google it and look it up if you just wanted to see the
Yeah.
just look up like NBA draft wheels Aaron, and it'll come up, and the wheel will actually show what it looks like. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not that big on NBA draft reform. I think it's kind of fine the way it works now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's fun to talk about and fun to look at, but I mean, like, the optics would be really bad if the team that won the championship then had the first pick the next year, because the wheel happened to land on them at that point. Like that,
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and then there'd be so much luck involved. Like, what
Yeah.
year did you happen to have the 3rd? And I guess there's luck involved anyway. But what year did you happen to get the number 1 pick? Was it a year when it was Kenyon Martin, or was it a year when it was LeBron? Right, like that kind of stuff.
I wrote a whole thing. I'll try to find it if I can. I don't remember. It might have been at Yahoo, but it might have been at NBC Sports. It was during the pause in 2020. I wrote a whole thing on the way I would have, like, remember, we're all looking for anything to write about and cover.
That's right. Yep.
So I wrote this whole long thing about how I would reform the draft, and it was around every 5-year cycle teams get chances, which is like basically ping pong balls, and it'd be like every team gets 20 a season, and then you can trade your chances in a given season to so if you wanted to trade, I'm going to trade all 100 of my chances over the next 5 years for a player, you could do that. And then I had all this other restructuring of the league calendar and all this stuff, but it's not, I don't know, not where I want to go. Whoa, $2,500. We're rich.
What?
This is, I don't know what CRC money is. It's probably like a buck or something.
Right. This one said, I understand Lakers need to keep D'Lo for trade flexibility, but do they have to pay the amount he wants? Who are they even bidding against? No, they don't have to. And that was the point that we were making earlier, that I don't know how much of a market there's going to be for him. Now, there is a fine line between playing hardball and all that sort of stuff and upsetting the player enough to where they say, well, no, forget it then. I'm bouncing. I'm going to take a 1-year deal somewhere and I'll hit the market next summer. They don't have match rights on him. He's not a restricted free agent. He'll be a free agent. And so you don't necessarily want to just completely lowball him or anything. But to that point, yeah, you're not bidding against anybody. If he says, I want 30 million, you can say no, because nobody else is giving him that, most likely. So that you do have to kind of walk that fine line, but that's where GMs are supposed to make their money, right? Get the big bucks for doing that.
Bruce Barnes did the calculation. That's $4.66 US dollars. So,
There we go.
hey, take it.
There we go.
It's a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Aniket Mohan asked
Oh,
difference between an early termination and player option. They're functionally the same thing. In a player option, you opt in to the contract, meaning if you exercise the option, you are under contract for the next year. In an early termination option, if you exercise the option, you are not under contract. There's some other differences that are related to signing extensions and things like that that aren't really worth covering. But in most cases, it's they function as the exact same thing.
exactly. Exactly. So that's you know, something to
Yep.
something to keep in mind. All right. So this one said, how would you feel if we took Koulibaly with the number 17 pick? NBA Draft.net actually has the Lakers mocked to take him. I'll be honest, I haven't done much of a deep dive on him yet. I'm just getting into my NBA draft prep, so I don't really have an opinion on that in any kind of way that would be an educated one. I that's in the coming weeks as we get closer to the draft. I'm going to check off more and more players that I'm looking into. He's not a guy that I've got to yet, so unfortunately, I can't really give you much insight into whether or not I think he would be a good pick. Keith, I don't know if you have any thoughts on. I know you were a little bit further in your draft prep than I am.
Yeah, I mean he's super duper young, really really raw. He's only 18, and he only will turn 19 in the middle of July, or I guess the end of July. But profiles like he's probably going to be okay. Right now, it's all athleticism for this guy.
Yeah.
He's 6'6". Might still grow a little bit. He might have another inch or two in him, but he's got good length. He's very, very athletic. I think people would really like that with him. But when he's been at the highest level league, it's kind of gone a little, differently for him. But he can play. I mean, I worry that his shot's not quite as good as it looks because he's really not a very good free throw shooter. So that part is a little worrisome. But he's 18 and super athletic, so you generally don't go wrong gambling on these. And Bilal Koulibaly is he's a kid out of France. For anybody who doesn't know.
All right. Green Water Theory said AD to Indiana, Turner, Duarte, Nembhard to LA. I would not do that if I was the Lakers.
Yeah, and I don't think the Pacers would have a ton of interest in that either. I don't think AD alone lifts them to where they want to go to, and they love Andrew Nembhard. So probably not.
I think this would be an example. This would be turning $1 into 75 cents.
Here's a good question from Brian Burley II. It's right above this one. Mo Bamba is not guaranteed, correct? Can the Lakers trade him for someone to cut him to save salary? They can, but here's the challenge. He counts right now as 0 in trade. So once the trade deadline passes, any player who's on a non or partially guaranteed contract only counts at the guaranteed amount of their contract for the next season. So whether that be at the draft or whether that be in the offseason before his contract becomes guaranteed, which won't go that way because his date is before the offseason starts. So really we're talking about the draft. Now what the Lakers could do is they could say we're going to guarantee him, $8 million of that amount
and use that.
What we need in matching salary. They could do that, but yeah, right now he counts for 0, so that functionally takes away the ability to move him to get somebody there.
Right. Yeah, you can't just. It's not like you could trade him and then come July 1st, that team wipes that money off the books and that's it. That doesn't work that way. All right, we'll do.
I want to do this one because
this.
Oh, go. We'll do that one, and then I've got one I want to do too.
Okay, cool. So this says Keith Smith, the cap space GOAT. Is Mo Bamba's contract a team option or is it non-guaranteed? If the Lakers waive him, does it impact their cap space? His contract is a bit confusing.
It's non-guaranteed.
Go ahead.
So in a team option case, what happens when it's a true team option is player can't be traded until that option is exercised. In this case with Bamba, they could trade him at any point because he is under contract for next year. In a team option, you would have to pick it up, and then in about 75% of cases, then the contract becomes fully guaranteed at the option amount. So that's the functional difference that most people care about. So it is a non-guaranteed contract. Just because this guy's put it in here a few times, the Lakers are not getting Fred VanVleet and Jakob Poeltl. Like, it's not happening. They don't have the ability to pull that
get
off.
both
Not
those
with
guys.
anything reasonable that they have under contract. The one I wanted to do, it's a couple up from that one, Trevor, by Nevin Verkopich. I'm guessing is how you maybe say that. Cap wise, in which order should a team start signing players? RFA, UFA, drafted veterans, etc. So I assume this is an order of operations type question. So this is super duper important when you're a cap space team. So let's just live in the world where the Lakers went the cap space route. If they were to go that way, Austin Reeves would either be their last or next to last signing that they would do, because he would be sitting on the books under a teeny tiny cap hold of $2.2 million. So what you do is you leave that on the books, use up all your cap space, and then you would go get somebody, then you re-sign your guys. So for the cap space teams, generally you're going to sign. UFA and RFA make no real difference in this case unless it's re-signing your own guy. But you go use all your cap space via trades or signing players. Then you re-sign your own guys, unless you're re-signing them to a smaller number than what their cap hold is. Then what you can do is you can do it a couple different ways. You can either just do that and have them count. That's what the Pistons did a year ago with Marvin Bagley. They re-signed him to a smaller number than his cap hold, and they just did it because why not? Or you can wait, renounce the guy and go. And then your draft picks, they all count at the same slot. And then guys on veteran minimum and the like, those guys get signed last. Same with anybody getting signed with the room exception, because those are after you've used your cap space. Then you use those to kind of fill out the rest of your roster.
And I think it's worth noting as well that while it's not necessarily something you have to do this way, typically what you'll see teams do is focus on unrestricted free agents first and then turn to restricted guys. Now, obviously, again, that's not a rule. That's not what you have to do. Teams don't need to do that, but you generally see it play out that way because teams don't want to give the 10 minutes into free agency, you submit an offer sheet to a restricted free agent, and then your money is tied up. And meanwhile, unrestricted free agents are just flying off the shelves. And by the time you know what's going on with that restricted guy, the tumbleweeds are blowing through the free agent market, and you're kind of left holding the bag.
Another nice thing is in the new CBA, which starts in July, that's
24 hours.
So it's no longer back when I first started, it was a week. I think when before that, I think it was 10 days. You had to match a restricted offer sheet, and then then they moved it down to a week, and then it went down, I think, maybe to 5 days, then to the 3 days. And you used to have teams play games where they would hide from each other because you had to deliver it. It's almost like a court, summons or whatever.
It's a summons.
It had to be handed in person to someone, and teams would literally, oh, they're coming, and they'd run the other way at summer league and foolish nonsense. And now it's like, no, let's just gets delivered electronically, and we have the record of when you got it. The one thing where the 24-hour clock is, it depends on what time of day you get it. It's like if it's before 5, it kicks in, you've got 24 hours. If it's not, it starts the next morning. But that's just that's matter of a couple hours there. It doesn't really matter.
Now here's the other piece to this, though, and I know we're kind of into overtime here, but you can't actually, we'll hear free agent X agrees to a contract this many years, this much money with this team. We'll be hearing that July 1st. We may even hear a little bit before. Sometimes that happens.
June 30th, right? We can.
Yeah, June 30th technically. Right, but anyway, it's right there. But they can't officially sign that contract until the 6th.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it's the the exact date, but so if you agreed with a restricted free agent on, let's say, July 2nd, you agreed with a restricted free agent, they can't actually sign that deal until the 6th, which then gives you time for we could be talking July 7th until the team with match rights has actually made their decision there, which means you're essentially, if you were to verbally come to terms with the restricted free agent July 2nd, and that you needed that cap space for somebody else, you're essentially sitting out of free agency, because by the time they've made that decision, and matched or not, most free agents are gone.
Yeah, and that's exactly why nobody
does that.
rushes into those. Now, depends on who the restricted free agent is, right? If it's Austin Reeves, if it's Cam Johnson, who are two pretty good players that really fit a bunch of these teams, I think they could come off the board pretty early, and
Sure.
it could go from there. Hey, so we're wrapping up here, guys. We both, unfortunately got to move on to do other things. I have surprisingly, when your team is coming back from down 3-0 in a series, a lot of people want to talk to you about it. So we'll kind of go from there. And but did want to mention this because it's been asked a lot of places. Come in the comments on YouTube. People have asked on Twitter. As of right now, we are both planning to be in Las Vegas at the same time,
Yes,
which is
sir.
very rare for us. I know it's been pre-pandemic. I think that,
Yep.
that I remember we recorded front office show in my hotel room one night.
That's right.
There. That was the whole earthquake summer in Zion and Paul
Zion
George
summer.
and Kawhi and everything. We don't know yet about a live show, meaning where you guys can come out and all that stuff, but we'll figure all that out. We've got a couple months here, or month and a half ish to
6 weeks.
kind of get that sorted. But we'll set up something where we can get together and meet up and do stuff with all the front runners here and everybody, and we'll figure it out. But obviously, if you just see us at Summer League, please come
Say hi.
hello. Love meeting people and getting to meet everybody. So yeah, thanks for everybody who reached out. And guys, thanks so much. Not only did you get us over 200 reviews on iTunes, I checked right before the show, we're up to 209.
Nice.
So you guys came through with a bunch of written ones and
Let's
super
go.
duper kind. And we'll read those on another show to a couple people who put really kind things in there. So really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And let's keep the subscriptions flowing in here so we can get this keep getting the channel up. We're closing in on 25K. Let's get there.
Let's get there. Let's do it. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for Fun Friday. A little extra bonus time here, but thank you for coming in. We had a blast talking NBA basketball with all of you. Of course, we'll do it again next week, but thank you guys again for joining us. Make sure you are subscribing to the YouTube channel if you're not already. And of course, follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.